Joe Biden says he has one message to every American who's struggling to make ends meet, and that's help is on the way. The president-elect has formally introduced his new economic team a short time ago. It's headed by the Treasury Secretary nominee, Janet Yellen, who's, of course, the former Fed chair, and she says the US is facing an historic crisis.
The pandemic and economic fallout that together have caused so much damage for so many and have had a disproportionate impact on the most vulnerable among us. Lost lives, lost jobs, small businesses struggling to stay alive or closed for good. So many people struggling to put food on the table and pay bills and rent. It's an American tragedy, and it's essential that we move with urgency.
That urgency perhaps not reflected on Wall Street, whereas you continue to look at the numbers. Markets are trading at record highs, whilst the head of the Chicago Fed tells me the real economy is screaming out for more support. I spoke to President Charles Evans earlier about the path to recovery. He worked with Fed Chair Janet Yellen at the central bank and says she'll be terrific in her new role.
I had the high pleasure of sitting next to her when she was a San Francisco Fed president until she became the vice chair in 2010. She's always the most prepared person in the room. You know, she always, when I had a slightly different idea, she listened respectfully, usually challenged sort of the weaker parts of it. And I always felt like my arguments were better. She's, you know, she's going to be terrific as Treasury Secretary. She was great as Fed chair, and I look forward to seeing her lead that area very strongly.
There's not a huge amount of merit in talking about interest rates because by your own statements and comments, there's going to be no movement on interest rates for the foreseeable future. We could be looking back end of 23 before we see rates. So instead, we have to look at where the growth and the stimulus is going to come from for the US economy. Where do you believe it comes from in the next year?
Well, Richard, I think that's a very astute comment. I do believe that based upon our forward guidance that, you know, we're going to be sitting with the federal funds rate at our effective lower bound of 0 to 25 basis points until we see the economy get closer to maximum employment and inflation up to 2% with it being on track to exceed 2%. And I think that's likely to take us into 2023 and perhaps beyond. I think that important aspects of whether or not it will be quicker than that or longer than that will be whether or not we see strong fiscal support. There are very useful arguments that, you know, much of the country could stand to have additional relief during the current increased virus spread and the risks that the economy faces. Many parts of the economy are doing well, but others are at risk because of it's very difficult to have person-to-person contact. So I think more fiscal support would help, and obviously progress on the vaccines and getting that rolled out and being successful, that would also be a huge impetus for continued growth.
Are you frustrated at the inability of political leaders to come together to have put together a stimulus package? They might all have good party reasons, but if you think about it, Chair Powell pretty much said, you know, we walked in front of them with a red flag and a whistle saying, we need stimulus. Does this get you frustrated?
I think as an economist looking at the economy and recognizing that monetary policy has already done a lot, when we're at zero, it's very difficult to provide more accommodation. We could provide additional asset purchases, but we're already doing quite a lot. This is a real economic downturn. It's a public health safety you know, crisis, and so that screams out for remedies other than monetary policy, fiscal support, relief for households that you know, find it very difficult to get a job, get to work and do it safely if you're in that part of the economy. And also state and local governments are challenged by reduced revenues and additional needs to help support, you know, the economy. So yes, I do tend to think that on the merits, people could come together and, you know, come to an arrangement where there was, you know, stronger fiscal support. That's what we've argued for. But those are, political discussions, and that's not really what I do for a living. So I just sort of look at it, and I hope that we don't. I hope that we don't repeat, the difficulties that we experienced in 2011 and 2012 when, we had disagreements over the debt ceiling. There was more austerity. There was reduced government spending, and it was nothing like the strong 1980s economic growth where there was generous, tremendous government spending during that period that led to a much stronger recovery from a 10% unemployment rate in 81 and 82. So I think fiscal support has been important historically, and something stronger than what we experienced in the mid 2000s, 2010s would be good.
Final question, sir, and you can take this one however you like. As the US looks forward to a new administration in January, what will you most be looking forward to about the new team that's taking over?
Like I say, I have worked with Janet Yellen, and I have high regard for her. I'm sure that she's going to be terrific. They will put together a team of economists by the names. They all have good credentials from their previous experience. I think working together with people in Washington to find the right remedies, to find a balance so that everyone in the United States can benefit from strong, persistent growth. That's what everybody cares about, and I hope they're successful. I hope we're all successful.
It's President Charles Evans of the Fed, the head of the Chicago